Hi and welcome to another episode of HB Gaming's GameLINK and one of our Halloween specials. Today we're doing a review on the Kickstarter version of Ankama Games Monster Slaughter. Now this one is absolutely spectacular. I'm going to spoiler alert, I'm a big fan. Partly because of the theming, partly because of the components, but I'll get to that very shortly. This game is for 14 years and up because of the content. It is called Monster Slaughter after all. It plays in about 45 to 60 minutes, 2 to 5 players, and as I said, we're reviewing the Kickstarter version, although the retail version is now available for pre-order as well. Where to begin? It's the 80s. A bunch of teenagers go out into a cabin in the woods. Unbeknownst to them, there are things lurking in the shadows and in the trees, and this is where you come in because you get to decide which monster family you'd like to play to basically storm the cabin and cause as much trouble and mayhem for these teenagers as possible. I guess it's not Monster Laughter, it's Monster Slaughter. There is a great big S there, so you can pretty much guess what's going to happen to these guys in the cabin as you encroach upon them. And it really, the game's theme is like a throwback to those 80s horror movies of all these creatures in the woods. It started in the 80s, got revitalized towards the end of the 90s, and is now still rife in this day and age. So I don't know, there's something about preying on these innocent, or not so innocent victims, and we all love it. The best part about this is that it's flipped. You're not playing the teenagers trying to escape the cabin, you're playing the monsters trying to get into the cabin. I have played this with a younger gamer and I had to change the story. I basically said that the teenagers are making too much noise and we're going in to tell them to be quiet. When I play it with an older group, we're just trying to slaughter them limb from limb and eat as much meat as we possibly can, which is how you score points. The basic overview of the game: you choose a monster family. On your turn, you'll choose to activate one of your monsters and you'll move them into the cabin. You'll scare the different teenagers, try and track them down, use your weapon cards to try and do damage and ultimately eliminate them from the game. Once all the teens have been destroyed or the sun comes up, the game ends, final reckoning, scoring happens and the game's over. However, it's not as simple as that, because you get given the opportunity to nominate the order you think these teens are going to bite the bullet, and then you can pick your favourite tasty meal. Ultimately, the order that you choose doesn't really matter, but it can help you score some bonus points into the game if you correctly predict which teen will meet their demise in what order. There are a ton of tokens and components that are included with this game. There is just so much going on here, and it's going to take me a while to get through it all. Bear with me because I want to just lay it all out for you right now. These are some of the best components I've seen in a game this style for a very long time. It's like a throwback to things like HeroQuest, which had heaps of components. The minis were really wonderful. There's just so much to this game. The best part about this game, though, is the box. The bottom of the box is the board. It's absolutely that brilliant. There's a whole ring that goes around here, the cardboard layouts. The board itself is the base of the box. The base of the box forms the cabin and you play inside the box. It's just brilliant. I don't know why more game designers and publishers aren't doing it. It makes storage a lot easier because you literally just take out the inserts, dump everything in, and away you go. It's absolutely fantastic to see. And the artwork on the board as well is really detailed. The cabin's trash, there's cigarette butts, there is beer bottles, the kitchen's got stuff everywhere, there's cobwebs, there's decrepit windows, there's cracks in the window panes glass. And this is the other thing I love about it: the board is destructible. So as monsters you can run in and actually destroy part of the doors. So literally the doors have broken parts in them as well, so you can actually break down part of the walls of the game as you go. And if you do that, the door actually scores you points for every door that you break. So why wouldn't you go smashing through the cabin? It's that fantastic. Pretty much everything you do in this game is designed to either scare, frighten, or trash the place. So as you play, by the end of the game, it's just a massive body count. There's broken doors everywhere. It's a whole lot of fun. But yeah, components-wise, getting ahead of myself, the cards are fantastic. The dice that they use in the game, there's 2 sets, white for the victims, green for the monsters. It's not a decal that's been printed, they're actually engraved dice, which is absolutely fantastic. Really detailed, very simple symbols, easy to understand. They roll really well, make a great rolling sound when you're rolling those dice on the game board. It's absolutely fantastic. The rulebook is pretty easy to read. It's in full colour, obviously, as well. A few components, I did find myself going back and forth a few times for my first couple of plays, because there are a lot of rules that relate to the victims that you may not process while you're playing the game. Each of the victims has a special ability, and if you've got the Kickstarter version like I did, you've got not just the core victims, there's also surprise guests as well. So during the course of the game, you may find that surprise guests show up to add another victim to the party. They could be like police officers, they could be Gizmo from Gremlins, they could be Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I mean, someone to look like her. There's Ghostbusters, there's all sorts of stuff. It's absolutely crazy. But once you finish the rule book and play a few core games, there's also a scenario book which gives you different ways to play your own sort of campaign through the thing, and those scenarios set up different scenarios that are an homage to those 80s movies as well. And a couple of the scenarios, they bookend off each other into a proper little mini campaign, I guess, which has a few surprises in store as well, but I won't spoil those for you. The artwork in the rulebook is great. The explanation, as I said, I did have to go back and forth a little bit, but it was only marginal. Once I've played through a couple of times, it was fantastic and really easy to set up and play. Well, I think the setup's the hardest part. There's a lot of different elements that go into one session of this, but once it's set up, it flows really nicely. Once you finish your turns with all your monsters, you go straight on to the next round. I find that moving through the cabin is relatively easy. It's about chance with the dice rolls, searching through the deck to get weapons. There is a take that element as well, because if one of your opponents is actually trying to attack one of the victims in the cabin, you can play cards from your hand to increase their defense dice, to give them more chances to escape, particularly if that person's not next on your kill list and you want to make sure you maximize your bonus points at the end of the game. One of the best parts about this though, yes, the board's great, yes, the box is fantastic, yes, the art's amazing, the dice components, the board components, the doors, all that is great, I love all that. But the best part about this, hands down, are the mini sculpts. The victims themselves are really, really detailed. They are that neutral grey, because obviously they don't belong to any family. They're very detailed. They've all got one guy, like this guy, for example, is obviously a bit of a beer drinker. He's got a beer in hand. You've got the jock, the typical cheerleader, the nerdy guy, the nerdy girl, all that sort of stuff. But the monster families are amazing. They are just incredible. I'm not sure how many there is in the standard retail version, probably about 6 or 7 different families to choose from. In the Kickstarter version, there's like 12 or something ridiculous. You've got the golems, like the Frankensteins, there's the werewolves, which are my personal favourite, there's vampires, there's a ghost that can walk through the walls, which doesn't really make much fun because you can't actually destroy the doors then. You've also got, there's crazy maniacs like a Friday the 13th style Jason Voorhees characters. There's, in the Kickstarter campaign, there's like the little, not gremlins, critters. There's a family of critters which is 5 creatures, not just the standard 3. They all come with their own deck of cards. They all come with their own foils as well in the deck. So as you build the deck of cards to go around to search each of the rooms, you can find a multitude of weapons to hurt people. There's traps that the victims spring on the monsters as well. But the mini sculpts, as you can see, they are so incredibly detailed. Each of them has their own persona. They have their own family style to match. And whoever's put the effort in here is just a really, really high quality. They're not a metal, so they won't bend. That doesn't mean they are brittle, so if they bend, they're likely to break. But at the same time, they're such high quality, and the trays inside the box are so... they allow for so much storage space, but they're snug enough to hold them in position, so it doesn't matter where you store the box, which orientation you store it, everything's going to be exactly where it was when you put the box away, and that's something else that I really, really love about this. Talking about the art, there's something a little bit comic book about-y, a comic book style, comic booky about the art in the game, but it also maintains that sinister style, which I really like. It's fun, it's cartoon, but it's also deadly, which is fantastic. It's got a really nice, I don't know, schlock horror style to it, and the creators have put in so much time and effort to make this game look visually stunning. And when it's fully set up, it looks incredible. You just want to dive right in and give it a go. And I think that's one of the best appeals about this game, apart from the theming and the genre and everything else. The fact is, when it's set up and it's spread out across the table, you just want to dive in, grab a monster family, and go to town on these guys. How does it play? As I said before, I think it plays really well. Once it's all set up and you have a comprehension of how it all plays, and I think it's better to play with someone who has played before, just so they can sort of lead the table a little bit. Once you sit down for a game though, it flows really smoothly. You know exactly which monsters you still have yet to activate. You can see what the other monsters are doing, whereabouts they are. You can try and work out, okay, hang on, which victim have you got next that you're gunning for? And even if you don't get the order right, chances are you're going to get a couple of pounds of flesh, and you're going to be able to make up some sort of points. And by the end of the game, it doesn't matter, because ultimately, so long as you get rid of them all, that's like a shared victory condition. You can have a team victory so long as you get rid of all the victims in the cabin, which I really like as well. It's really nice. Replayability, I think, is another thing that this game has in spades, because you can play with just the golems, the Frankenstein monsters, but then the next time you play, you might play with the wolves, or the vampires, or the clowns, or whatever the case may be. And every different family you pick, you're going to have a different playstyle, because they have different abilities, they have different weapons that they can use, they have different weapons that can be used against them. On top of that, the victims can change, because you get those special guests as an extra component as well. No two games of this are ever going to be the same, because the order that you choose might be different, and that's going to affect how you have a playstyle as well. Do you go straight for the cheerleader because she's on your kill list, or do you want to try and make sure that you foil everyone else's options as well, but still get a bit of damage tokens on those characters too? There's just so much detail, so much strategy here. It's enough to keep you coming back to the table time and time and time again, and that is fantastic. Overall, I already said at the beginning of the video, I love this. This is one of my favourite new games of 2018. I know that with the retail version coming out, it's going to be a little bit of a diluted version of the Kickstarter version, but there's expansions already in the works. There's one already available on Kickstarter, Monster Slaughter Underground, which adds a basement level to the building. There's the Tool Shed expansion, which adds a whole another level, because the victims can jump outside the cabin and pick up weapons at random. There's so much replayability here, there's so much to love. Even younger gamers, under than 14, you may have to change the storyline a little bit, like I said at the outset. But they can get into it, because there's physical things you have to move around, there's so many components, there's so much in the one box. Okay, the retail pricing is probably a little bit up there, probably a bit more than what people would spend on a game, but there is so much that you get. I haven't even got everything out here. There is so many components, so much to this game. Yes, spending $150 might be a bit too much for some people, but if you only buy one game, and it's this one, you'll be playing it a full year out, and for $150 for a whole thing of entertainment, you can go $50 and spend on the movies for a 2-hour session. Whereas this, you can spend that money and just have it replaying, and it will be something you get out every Halloween, for every Halloween to come, because of the fact that it's got that crazy content. And if you're playing it under low lights and you've got all these people around the table, it's just a good time. I just imagine sitting back here with all my mates, we're all trying to vie for who we're going to knock off next, sitting around drinking a beer. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And something that people of both genders can get behind as well, because the monster families are made up of a mum, a dad, and a kid. So there's at least 3 that can identify with any gender, any sort of orientation. It's very user-friendly. There's just so much going on in this game. And if you haven't checked it out, by all means do so. We do have a demo copy. We do offer showcases, so by all means, give us a call, get in touch. We can bring it around to your place and showcase the game for you at your next game night. On top of that, it is available for pre-order. The retail version is available for pre-order on our website as well. There's a link in the comments below. If you have any questions about how it plays or any of the components, please let me know in the comments as well, and I'll get back to you whenever I can. But otherwise, yeah, I highly recommend it. It's a big thumbs up from me. Great for any game night, not just for Halloween, but as we're coming into Halloween, get your spook on, get those teenagers and teach them a lesson they will never, ever forget. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time for another HP GameLink video. This has been a review of Monster Slaughter by Ankama Games, and yeah, it's well worth a look. Bye for now. See you next time.